Hello, and firstly, welcome to Norwich, welcome to UEA, and welcome to Dev. I'm Rob Grant, and in this short film, I'm going to tell you about the module RPP, or Rural Policies and Politics. That's a core module for the Masters in Agriculture and Rural Development and for the Masters in Environment and International Development. Students have done it from all kinds of other courses as well in the past, so you're all very welcome. There are no specific requirements. Does link very nicely with RLAC in the first term, but that's not necessarily to take. It's an interdisciplinary module that picks up themes from across the range of things we look at in this department. Let's meet the team. I'm Rob Grant. I'm the module organiser and economist interested in rural developments, especially Africa, East Africa. We also have on the team Professor Adrian Martin, social scientist who specialises in interdisciplinary research involved in the management of natural resources, areas of social justice and natural resources, participatory forest management, agricultural intensification, and so on. And Dr. Rachel Carmenter, who is an environmental social scientist specialising in all kinds of interdisciplinary research at the intersection of environment and development. She's particularly been working, for example, on fire recently, the multifaceted aspects of fire, the causes of fire, as politically and socially constructed as well as environmentally constructed. And she's worked in the Brazilian Amazon and Indonesian peatlands, for example. So that's the team. Now, let's go on with the rest of the module. Conceptually speaking, our conceptual focus is politics, policies, politics, and political ecology. So the module could almost be called PPPE, but there are too many P's, so we call it RPP. Those are the concepts we're into, but it's a very applied module, so I'm going to focus in this short talk on concrete examples. So here, for example, we've got a typical rural family. It happens to be a picture from Sierra Leone, but it could be from many other places. So you might ask, what do they do? Are they farming, for example? Looks like it could be. Some at school, perhaps. How do they keep healthy? Is there a regular clinic in the area for infants and young children, like we can see here? Who does all the work in the family? You might notice who's carrying the burdens in this picture. Who takes the decisions? Is that the same as the people that do the work? What natural resources are important for this family? Who controls access to the natural resources they use? And what shapes the natural resources that are available for them to use? Is it a purely natural phenomenon? Moving on, if some of this family are in farming, then how exactly do they farm? Is it tractors? Is it something like this? With hand hose, as in this Ugandan case here? Who in that case does the work? And from this picture, we might think there's a gender dimension to that. Who owns the land? Is it rented land? Are they growing food to eat in their families? Are they going to sell the food, or both? Are they selling modern varieties that have been in some way engineered to suit the environment or to suit commercial needs? Are they traditional varieties? Are they putting fertiliser on? Is that organic? What policy support shapes all this work? Do they have agricultural extension? Do they have rights over the land? Are there labour laws for people that are being employed here? Is there insurance for crops? If they are growing stuff for them to eat as opposed to sell, then how are they going to cook that food? Is it on an Aga or induction stove or gas stove, or is it going to be a fire stove? So women again in Uganda carrying firewood. If they're using firewood, where does it come from? Who collects it? Is it free? What about the environmental impact of that? And what policies affect this situation? So environmental regulations, for example, local forest management, support for alternative fuels, is that there? How do they get the wood home? Well, it seems like a road here. Is the road always going to be that good? Or could the road be more like this road? So this is a rural road in Liberia. So what's got to come in and out of that area? You've got to bring crops out, hopefully, if you're going to sell them. You want the farmers need things to buy for their livelihoods, for their leisure, for their development. They need medical supplies, agricultural inputs. They need to access urban services, visit relatives and so on. So this road's a really crucial lifeline. Economically and socially. But what policies and what political pressures affect the provision of a road? Like in any country in the world, the road is not supposed to be like that on paper. There's a policy for this. So how is that policy translated into this form of road? Were there no resources for this road, or did the resources go to another place? Now, if you consider the last three slides, what are the impacts of farming and firewood and transport on the environment? What types of activity, what types of farming, what types of energy use, what types of transport, What kinds of organisations, from a small family business to maybe a larger firm, what types of impact do those have on the environment? What are the politics surrounding that, getting who gets to access to build roads or to access the wood in the forest? So moving on again, once the crops leave the village, one eye on the clock, how are they sold? Well, are they sold in a market like this, like a market in Bolivia? How in that case do farmers, getting a little bit further away from that, the farmland now, how do they contract and negotiate with the traders? What price are they going to get? Can they be sure once they've negotiated that price they'll get the payments, or perhaps there'll be some underpayments or renegotiation? From the trader's point of view, how does the trader know that quality is any good? If I turn up with a nice basket of tomatoes or chilies, how do I know the ones at the bottom of the basket are as good as the ones at the top if I'm a trader? Who loses out if the crops get damaged on the way? Does the trader lose out? Does the farmer lose out? Does the customer lose out? Who loses out? And what policies and regulations are relevant to all this? So are there standard weights and measures to stop people being cheated? Is there a dispute resolution if something goes wrong with that contract, that agreement? Are there safe market areas so that a lone woman trader is just as safe as an important man with good connections? Is there a communications infrastructure so I can ring ahead and know what's the price before I pick my crops and go and sell them? Now, the evidence suggests that literacy helps farmers get a better deal, but if literacy helps people get a better deal and negotiate, how do farmers get literacy? Is it in a situation like this? Does the rural school have electricity or walls? This is a school in DRC, for example. Are there sufficient well-qualified teachers? If there are teachers, are they motivated to attend school and teach? Or perhaps they're paid so low that they don't attend school, they then have to do private tutoring in the evenings, which only some of the children can reach. Is the curriculum appropriate? Is it still teaching a colonial language, for example? Is there a difference to what's taught in the urban areas and what's taught in the agriculture? The sons and daughters of elite in urban areas, are they learning the same things as the people in the agricultural area? Now, education policy is clearly relevant. Now, how does policy get there? This is why it's not just called policy, it's called policy and politics. What political pressures shape and the design and the delivery of these policies? Are there other NGOs also involved in shaping policy and delivering policy? Now, if education is effective, will it bring positive change? And is this positive change? So remember that the market in Bolivia? Well, here we've got a supermarket in Accra, in Ghana. So are these a better option for farmers and for consumers for marketing crops? Is greater rural integration always desirable? How can policy mitigate the fact that maybe a supermarket like this has got real serious bargaining power with the farmers? Can policy even the playing field a little? Should we encourage rural-urban migration, like people tending to come to the cities and getting more into this environment? Finally, getting towards the last one of these little series of slides, what can rural people do when the policies that affect them in all these areas are not any good? When the politics has gone wrong and they've ended up with policies which are not favourable to them, which are destructive to the environment, what can they do? Well, can they do this? Protest. So this is a protest over land rights in Sarawak. Ultimately, policy is shaped and implemented in the political arena. That's why this module has the title. That's why the economic systems, the ecological systems, they shape what people can do economically and the environment, but also they are shaped by political processes. So technical administrative details of policy are important to understand, but there's no good having a wonderful policy that in principle, if it won't get designed and implemented in practice. So the influence of interest group pressure can't be ignored. So we ask things like, what groups of stakeholders are affected by a policy? What influence do those groups have on the policy? What kind of rural stakeholders are there in particular, as opposed to the urban elites? And does any policy evaluation take account of those marginalised and rural voices? Okay. So finally then, the usual overview of what topics were. Here are some topics we include. We have, I won't read through them all, but I think here you can see there's a range of politics across environmental, economic, ecological, environmental governance, political ecology type areas. The way we organise the module is that obviously there's lectures, You have small group discussion of cases. Again, it's very, very focused. Have workshops, feedback on essay plans, because I'll get to in a minute, the assessment is a large summative essay, and a lot of sharing and learning from experience. In the past, we've had people giving reports in lectures and workshops. For example, if I'm talking about road development somewhere, I've had a student standing up and giving a report from the DRC who worked on roads in the DRC. We've had reports from people on people that ran sugar outgrowing factories in Pakistan, someone that was sending up a Japanese student that was setting up an Indami supply chain in China, and he actually brought some beans in for us to try. Someone brought some cocoa beans in from Pacific Island, where she'd been working on cocoa during her master's course. Students are working on decentralization programs in Solomon Islands and Georgia, rural education in Mongolia, the chocolate value chain in Indonesia, which is where we got the chocolate beans from, and deforestation and ranching in the Amazon. Just some examples. This module tends to attract students with a wide range of interests and experiences, and we encourage you to share those and draw on them. So you're as much of a resource as the lecturers and the literature we read. So that's always a very enjoyable part of the course. And finally, the summative assessment is a 3,500 word essay of some kind of policy analysis, looking at the politics, the political ecology of policy. Huge scope of possible topics. We'll give you some guidance, but you can choose in terms of, okay, which country would I like to focus on, which issues am I wanting to follow up on, and write an essay on that. Okay, I think I've probably used up my 10 minutes, so I've got 11 minutes, right. So I'm going to come to my last slide, just to summarise. Welcome again, everybody. I hope that many of you will consider taking RPP, so we can work together next spring. But also, I hope that your inspiration grows, whichever route you follow. I hope to meet some of you online, I hope to meet some of you soon, whether it's online or hopefully actually on campus. We're pretty much completely back to campus now. So I hope you take RPP. Whether or not you do, have a fantastic year. Thanks for watching and enjoy your master's course. Bye.